Welcome. You have made a wise decision to join this podcast interview with an influencer. Think of what has influenced you this past year, especially with COVID-19 being so dominant and destructive. Many ordinary people have lost hope and just given up. You, on the other hand, are extraordinary, and you have not only survived, you might have even thrived with all of these changes. How do I know that about you? Because you're listening to a podcast about interviews with people who can influence others. In today's case, that influencer is Joel Weldon, and I know for sure he can influence you because he has been such a great influence in my life in the past few months. Joel is my personal speaking coach, and he has helped me so much with putting on my webinars and in my selling activities and producing this podcast for you. One of the things you have realized with all of the dramatic changes you've been faced with is how important it is to be an effective communicator, especially in the virtual world you find yourself in. This is the area that Joel Weldon excels in. He is a Hall of Fame professional speaker with over 3,000 paid speaking engagements over the past 47 years. Plus, he is the creator of the Ultimate Speaking System and has personally coached over 10,000 speakers. With all that he's accomplished, I asked Joel, "How old are you?" He just smiled and said, "Laura, let me put it to you this way. My social security number is 5. Well, I laughed, and hopefully you're laughing too, because that's one of the other skills that Joel can help you with. Adding humor when you speak without telling jokes. This podcast has attracted successful entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, and many people in the healthcare and dental professions. The one common denominator that you have with everyone else in our podcast family is your desire to keep improving yourself and grow your business. That's exactly what Joel's focus has been for all of these decades. How can you use speaking to grow your business and position yourself as a thought leader in your profession? Please welcome my coach, my friend, my influencer, and hopefully yours as well, Joel Weldon.
Well, thank you, Laura, for that wonderful, joyful, enthusiastic introduction. And so glad that you're here as a member of this audience looking for ideas to help you grow your business. So this is a very informal discussion. I have no idea what Laura's going to ask me. So I'm going to turn it back to her for the first question.
Well, welcome. Thank you.
What would you like me to say or talk about?
You are full of so much wisdom around sales and growing your business. You know, I've talked to you about our theme being growing ourselves and both our businesses and professionally. And, you know, people often feel very discouraged when they don't see much growth. What are your ideas on that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think COVID-19 and the time of our recording were just a little over a year ago before the World Health Organization in March 11, I believe it was, 2020, declared it a worldwide pandemic. And everybody's world changed as a result of that. And hopefully during this time, you have pivoted and readjusted and adapted and thrived in spite of this. But I think as that question stated, but sometimes we get discouraged because we don't see the progress that we're making. And that's why maybe this story will be helpful for you. And one of the goals of this podcast is to encourage you to use speaking to grow your business. You're an expert at something. And this story has helped a lot of people. And of course, it's a true story. Whenever you share a story with your audience, make sure it's true. So let's just imagine that you're at one of Laura's training sessions live. Okay, a live event. And Laura is standing up on the stage telling you that we're going to do a little experiment. And she holds up a bag of seeds. And she says, I have some seeds here. And what we're going to do, we've made a plot of ground outside of my home. We're going to go right over to my home. And I blocked it off. And you're going to plant these seeds. And then you're going to take your business card and we're going to staple it to a little stick. And wherever you plant your seed, we're going to put your name on it. And next year, when you come back, we're going to see what grows. And she hands you some seeds to the moso plant. And then you head out to her home, you plant the seeds, you staple the card to the stick, you put it in the ground. And then Laura says, I'm going to hire some people to water and fertilize this. Next year, we're going to come back and look. So next year you show up and nothing is growing. It's just the same plot of ground. Your business card's a little more tattered from the weather, but nothing is growing. She said, that's okay. Next year, we're going to come back again. Now, what do you think the odds are? Let's just say there were 100 people the first time. Maybe half of them show up the second year because they're discouraged. And they go back and they look at the plot of ground. And Laura, what do you think they see? Nothing.
Nothing.
All right. Laura said, because Laura's so positive, come back next year, third year. Now you come back. Now we're down to 20 people. I mean, 20% are going to show up, look at that card. And you know what? The third year, nothing. Then maybe they're saying, Laura, maybe that gardener isn't watering. Maybe you're not fertilizing. Maybe something is wrong here. No. We've had it watered, fertilized, taken care of it. Come back next year. Come back the fourth year. Nothing. She said, I come back the fifth year. And the odds are that 5 people show up. About 5% of people stick to their goals, follow through, and don't give up. And hopefully you'd be one of them. Because in that fifth year, that moso plant, the seeds of a Chinese bamboo moso plant, somebody says, look, something is growing. And you look down at your little seed and the card, you could barely read your name after 5 years out in the weather, but you see a little green bud. And from that moment, in the next 6 weeks, the Chinese bamboo plant grows 90 feet. It is the fastest growing plant on the planet. Above ground, there's a seaweed that grows faster, but it is the fastest growing plant. What do you think has happened? Because for those 5 years, it was spreading roots. Literally, miles of roots were spread. And in that fifth year, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. That's the height of a 9-story office building. You can almost see it growing.
Wow.
And yet, 95% of the people don't show up. Make sure you're in that 5%. Don't get discouraged. If you're doing the right thing, if you've planted the seeds, if you're watering, fertilizing, seeking ideas like that, you will see growth. It doesn't happen right away. And now I'm not suggesting it's going to be 5 years before you see progress in your business. It could be 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 weeks. It could take 5 years. So hopefully you remember the Chinese bamboo plant, the moso, and you're just like that plant. So Laura, do you like that story?
I love that story because I have myself been in times, somewhat discouraged and thinking that I'm doing all the right things. And you're right, poof, when you stick with it. And I have had an incredible year despite COVID because I've taken the time to just really build myself and really focus on those important things. So I know so many people out there have as well. Okay, the moso plant, I am going to go plant that. So as we grow our businesses in this virtual world, for you, I'm sure it's changed your life dramatically, Joel, as you are a speaker who normally speaks in front of thousands of people. How have you pivoted and what has been the impact on you?
Well, I think it's been wonderful. The idea of these virtual calls. Now, where are you, Laura?
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, you're in South Carolina, and I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. Boy, I had some trouble on the flight. My plane out of Phoenix was late, and I almost missed my connection in Dallas. But I finally did get there to the Carolina. Oh, wait a minute. We just pressed a button, and suddenly we are together. So one of the things that's happened in the speaking world, of course, all meetings have been canceled for a year, and everything has gone virtual. But there's so many benefits. And this is something that you can retain as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a person of influence. You can influence so many more people through this virtual world. And that virtual world consists of videos that you would make and put on YouTube or put on your website. It includes webinars like Laura mentioned that you're doing. It could be a podcast like this. It could be an educational seminar on what you're doing. And I'm working with a woman who talks about hydration. And because it's drinking more water she's not selling anything because you already have water, but she can get her ideas across and become a person of influence through this virtual world. So my challenge to you is accept it. It's not perfect. Now, Laura, you're a hugger. I mean, we met in person at the only meeting I've done in over a year when we met at Speakeasy in Scottsdale with Steve Stims, and you hugged me, and you are a hugger. Well, you might be a hugger too, but on a virtual world, you can't hug. But you can still connect. You can still speak. You can still share your ideas and be so much more time efficient, because we're not even going to invest an hour of time to do this communication process between you, the other listeners, Laura and me, scattered all over. And you can reach the whole world. Tomorrow, I'll be at a meeting with people from Israel, people from England, people from Germany and Australia and New Zealand. All of us are going to be on a Zoom call together at a worldwide networking meeting. Where could you do that without having people spend days of travel and thousands of dollars? So this is a great blessing. And I think COVID-19 has changed the communication world for the better. Plus, everybody knows how to do this because you've had to do it. Grandparents that never touched the computer did it because they couldn't see their grandkids, but they learned how to press Zoom and talk into a camera. And since we're talking about that, let me give you one suggestion. I'm talking to Laura as well as you, but let me look at Laura as I would see her. Okay, so does this make sense, Laura? All right, so now that we're talking, now imagine as you're a listener to this, how would it be if I was talking to you like this? So one of the suggestions is when you do a virtual call, like on a Zoom, don't look at the screen. Your audience is in the camera, like I'm looking at you right now. That's what you want to do. Now, I could glance down. Okay, good. That's a good question, Laura. And now you talk to the camera. Also, raise your camera up about 3 inches above your eye level. So you're not looking down, you're looking more up. Just a little tip virtually. So yes, Laura, I love this idea. And if I never have to get in front of an audience, I wouldn't be disappointed. Now, I love being in front of an audience, and hopefully you will too. But the same tools apply speaking live or virtually. It's about your message. It's about connecting with your audience. It's making it about them and not about you. All of those don't change. And that's what my whole Ultimate Speaking system is all about, how to make your message connect with your audience and still be yourself. It's not about acting and performing. It's being congruent. It's being who you are. That's why I love working with Laura. Laura is happy and joyful. It's not an act. So when you see her do things, that's how she is all the time. From the day I met you at that Speakeasy to every call that we've had, she's the same. And that's how you need to be. And if you're more serious and direct and not smiling all the time, that's how you should be. Just let people know that. You know, I don't look very excited about these ideas, but my excitement is on the inside. So please don't let my stoic expression make you think that I'm not excited about these ideas. I'm very excited. Matter of fact, if I won the lottery and got $1 billion, I would probably say, oh, I won the lottery. I just got $1 billion. Oh, okay, that's nice. I wonder what the taxes are going to be. All right, if that's how you are, that's how you should be. Now, if Laura won the lottery, she would open the door. Wow! Travis, look.
For sure. For sure.
Okay. I mean, be you. Does that make sense, Laura?
It does make sense. And I don't know if I could be someone else. So I was really glad that on our first coaching call, that was what it was about, making me comfortable with just being who I am. And I love that. You know, one of the other amazing things that I learned from you, well, I'm going to start it with a little bit of a story. I used to speak a lot in church when I was growing up, and I would lay out my entire speech on a piece of paper and I would basically read it. And what I've learned from you has actually given given me a lot of freedom, but also the preparation. I love how much I've learned from you in the preparation. Will you share a little bit about what you recommend in terms of preparation?
Yes. Well, as you think of talking to somebody in a virtual world or in a live situation, here's the basic premise. It's about them. It's not about you. If you accept that. So if your expertise is in the dental area or in the medical area, this is an area that you excel in, you're comfortable in it, but you're talking to people who don't know anything about that. If you're a business owner and you have a unique product or service, you understand it. You're there every day. You're living it. You're breathing it. But you're talking to people who are hearing this for the first time. Mm-hmm. So you need to think about your audience. I call it TLA. Think like the audience. Don't think like yourself. TLA thinks is that tender, loving care. But think about making it tender, loving care for your audience. Think like your audience. And the way you do that is identify their needs, fears, and victories. If you would start that off, before you start any message or any kind of presentation, ask yourself, what does this audience or person need to be doing about the area I'm talking about that they're not doing now? What do they worry about? Fears, that's the F. Needs, fears. Fears are worries or concerns. What is keeping them up at night? What worries or concerns them? And then the V is a victory. What are their successes, their achievements? They've been financially successful. They're business owners. They've achieved success. They're in retirement because they've earned enough money. They don't have to work anymore. What are their successes? And what those needs, fears, and victories do for you as a presenter and a speaker is it helps you address the audience where they are. Mm-hmm. And you're not talking to yourself. And that's the biggest challenge you face. You're an expert at something. And because you live it and breathe it, it's easy for you. But your audience has not heard this before. That's why you're talking to them. So that would be the process we talked about preparation, is really understanding who you're talking about. And that's what Laura told me about you. So this needs to be relevant to your world. So what are your needs? You need to be using speaking more, making videos for your website, putting your knowledge into a video and putting it on YouTube. You need to be maybe doing a podcast or doing a webinar or an educational seminar. And what are your fears? Well, I'm not really a speaker, or I tried speaking once and it didn't work, or I made a video and nobody looked at it. Remember the Chinese Moso plant? 5 years, nothing was happening, but it was happening. It was that root system that was miles of roots spread out, enabling it to grow so fast once the root system was in place. So even though you might feel that you're failing at some things, those are all roots. They're making you stronger. They're teaching you what's not working so you can focus on what is working.
I love that.
Does that make sense?
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, spreading that out, I feel like the spreading of my roots since I've begun working with you has not just helped me in my speaking situations or in my videos that I'm making, but even in my communication with people on just a regular basis, making my conversations about them, identifying with their needs, their fears, their victories. It makes you more audience centered. And I feel like I've always kind of been that way anyway, but now I'm aware of it. And now I process, what I provide by listening to them more. And so I love that I've learned that from you. What, as we're growing our companies, you talk about different ways that we can get started. And you've talked about all these different kinds of podcasts and educational videos. And how, I feel like Zoom has kind of prepped us for more video work and being in front of it. Like I have to sit and stare at myself sometimes in front of video. But how do you recommend people get comfortable with, and what does a setup look like in terms of preparing yourself to record?
Well, I think the most important thing is your mindset. And if you think of what you have seen, now you have seen videos before. You've gone on YouTube. You've gone on somebody's website and saw an opening video about what they do. What's connected with you? And I think one of the things that really works, especially with Laura, is authenticity, is being who you are. And that speaking effectively is not a performance. It is not acting. And so many times when I start working with somebody as their speech coach, they think, okay, so Joel is going to talk about how I should use my voice and project myself. That's what an actor does. And the very different definition of actor is somebody who is pretending to be somebody they're not. Is that what you want to be as you're communicating your ideas? That's the antithesis. You want to be exactly who you are. And what you're seeing in Laura and myself is exactly what you would see if you came to our home, sat in the living room, and we had a conversation.
Yes.
And I would be telling stories. I'd be using my hands, and I'd have all this kind of energy. Well, that's how I am. I wake up that way. I go to sleep that way. And it's not an act. It's real. And then Laura mentioned about using humor. Like my social security number is 5. Well, it's not, but you get the idea. But I am old. I mean, Laura, on my birthday, the candles cost more than the cake. Okay. I mean, that I am so old. I can remember when Baskins and Robbins had just one flavor. And Burger King was only a Prince. So that's way back. All right. So there's something that you can kid about. Kid about yourself.
Yeah.
Kid about yourself. And if you do that, people love that. So how can you be preparing to make a video or using this virtual world? Be yourself. Now, you need certain equipment. You need a microphone. You need lights. There's so much stuff on YouTube that you can find out on how to set up a virtual studio for yourself. But the most important suggestion I can give you is what both Laura and I are doing, is looking at you. Because you and I can't connect physically, our only connection is with our eyes. So I'm not going to look at you if you were here. Oh, I see Morris over here has got Evelyn. Oh, Evelyn, you're what? No, you're interested in you. And the other suggestion is talk to one person. Notice I didn't say all of you, everyone out there. Hey, guys, no, it's about you, singular, no plurals. That sound good, Laura?
That sounds amazing. I never believed that it would be possible for me to be a speaker because I had so much anxiety around it. And Joel, you really have the concepts that I've gained from you just in the last few months have really helped me develop, I think more than anything, getting over the fear, the mindset, like you're talking about. That's the place you have to start. Just realize that you can do it. And that if you're just yourself, people will, the right people will be attracted to you, right? The people that you can identify with and who want to hear your message. So share your expertise. Don't be afraid to do it. And as you can see in my office, I'm new to South Carolina. I'm in an empty office. My movers have not yet arrived. Yet here I am with just my desktop having this moment with Joel. And I'm so grateful that I get this time with him. And I look forward to our next coaching call. Anything else, Joel, that you would love to share with our audience that can help them to, well, first of all, before I get onto that, can I show you one of the very first things that Joel gave me?
Yes, that's my business card since 1974. Success comes in cans, not in cannots. And over 500,000 people have that can. Most keep it on their desk.
You can be a speaker too.
But you're mentioning about this fear, and fear is self-consciousness. So since many of your followers are in the medical area, so just imagine that you're a doctor and you're driving someplace in the car, and ahead of you, you see an accident right in front of you. A car crashes into a pole. The driver is ejected, is laying in the street. You were headed to, let's say, a formal dinner. You were dressed beautifully, and you jump out of your car. You run over. The person is bleeding profusely, but you're a doctor. What do? You immediately see the source of the blood, attempt to stop the bleeding, make sure that they're breathing, and render care. Laura, representing her, would you say that's what anybody who would be listening to this podcast would do?
Absolutely.
Or would you say, well, this is my best outfit and I might get blood on it. Maybe I should wait till the ambulance. Would you do that? If you were a medical person, would you be thinking about your clothes getting dirty? I would suggest that would be the last thing. And that's the same mindset that you need when you're communicating. That doctor realized it had nothing to do with them except saving this injured person's life by stopping the blood from coming out of their body. That's the only thing they'd be focused on. And if you have that mindset too, that's the mindset Laura has with this podcast. She realized that if she was going to do this and interviewed me, she had to do it now. She has no furniture. So what? That's not what the important thing is. The important thing is the message and getting yourself out of the way. So that doctor rendering care had no thought about themselves. And that's what you need to have. And that's what Laura has when she does the training that she does and offers you the programs that you've been attracted to. It's all about you and how you can benefit because she's already using them. She's already experienced them. And that doctor who saved that injured person in the car wreck is healthy and happy. They're not bleeding. They don't need to stop their blood. It's about them. And that's the mindset that will get you over your fear. And then one of the other premises in the ultimate speaking system is the fact that it is a learned skill. I never gave a talk in front of anybody till I was 28 years old. Not once in 4 years of high school did I stand up and give a book report or talk in front of my classmates. I was terrified. I couldn't even lead my Sunday school class in silent prayer. Now that's bad. Speaking was the last thing I thought I ever could do until I did it. And then I got better at it. You can do the same thing. FEAR is an acronym, false evidence appearing real. It's false evidence. You can do this. You can be a communicator and share what's in your heart and soul, and people will get the message. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Right, Laura?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I am barely into the program, but I can't recommend it highly enough. Joel, please tell the audience how they can get in touch with you, the best way to learn more about you.
Well, best way, you can go to ultimatespeaker.com. That's our website for the Ultimate Speaking System. And because you're part of this podcast, we're going to do something. And Jenny is my daughter and partner, and she came up with this idea. We're going to move the decimal point. So when you go on there, you're going to see a number of different programs, the one-on-one coaching that Laura and I are doing. And then we have a group coaching, and then we also have coaches that work with me. I have 3 other coaches. And then we have 2 programs, and one of them is called Quick Start. It's $997. So Jenny came up with, for Laura's members, why don't we just move the decimal? I said, what do you mean move the decimal? Why don't we just make it $99?
Wow.
And 70 cents. I said, really? She said, yeah. Let's get them started. So if you like what you're hearing and want to get a system, and what Quick Start is, that's what this Quick Start is, how you can create a message from scratch with no preparation before going into this course. And in under 3 hours, you'll have a complete message. And it's absolutely guaranteed. If you use it, go through it, and you say, this really isn't that good, then you get a refund. No time limit, no questions asked. You got to be thrilled. And that will get you started on these tools. And then if more wants to come in the future, you can get the Ultimate Speaking System or the coaching, and you get a full credit for that $99 that you start with. But there's an inexpensive way to test out and see if what I'm saying really works. So ultimatespeaker.com. Now the promo code is really hard. Laura. That's it. Just type in Laura, and then you can move the decimal point, and instead of $9.97, it's 99.70 cents.
Wow.
That's it.
Amazing.
Is that a good value?
That's an amazing value. I know that to be true. And there's no way when anyone's going to want a refund, because the amount, I just remember the first webinar that I brought to you, and we worked it over, and in no time at all, we had the structure and the content. It just was such an amazing experience. And it was so true that making it about the audience, that took away all the fear for me, and it really made it fun. So I have really enjoyed my creations, my webinars, my videos, my interviews with amazing people like you, Joel Weldon. And so, yeah, take advantage of that value. That's so gracious. Thank you so much.
Well, when you're ready, I have a closing to share with our listener.
Okay, I'm ready to hear it.
Oh, you're ready for the close? We're ready. Okay, you want to keep, all right. So you heard from the introduction, I've been doing this a long time, and you heard how old I am. And if you were to ask me to summarize everything I've learned and put it in one sentence, now that's a great exercise for you. If you were to summarize everything that you know about what it is you do, could you put it into one sentence? Well, here's that sentence, and it's 22 words. Speak to your audience about what they need in an organized way they can follow, and get yourself out of the way. Make it a great day.